What is up, guys? We are live. Welcome to the Bags to Riches podcast. I'm your host, Zach Ginn, and in today's episode, we have a treat for you guys. We have Chris Jefferson, one of the best real estate wholesalers in the state of Virginia. This dude is absolutely killing it. I am so excited to hear from Chris. And in today's podcast, Chris is going to reveal the secrets on actually how to become a wholesaling millionaire with no cash or credit. This dude has come from nothing into a wholesaling millionaire, and this dude has flipped a lot of houses. So I'm really excited to bring you on today, Chris.
Hey, absolutely, man. I'm happy to be here. Excited to have the conversation and hopefully give some great value to your listeners that they can take, implement, and apply to their businesses right away, man. So thanks for having me on.
Sweet. And before we get into it, guys, remember, please like and subscribe. We give this information absolutely for free, so we can help as many people get on here. But yeah, Chris, you have been a highly requested guest. You've been sharing value everywhere, and people are just excited to hear from you. So if someone's watching this and they don't know who Chris is, can you explain your story and how you got into real estate wholesaling?
Yeah, so that's a good question, man. I'm a regular guy from Richmond, Virginia. I got started in wholesaling kind of by happenstance, really. I got into the business as a bird dog, which is not a term really used anymore, but a bird dog is like somebody who doesn't know about wholesaling, basically, right? So I started out as a bird dog many years ago, really like 13 years or so ago, and got started, was referring some properties to a couple of buyers in my market, and they would give me like $250, $500, that kind of thing. At the time, I was in my early 20s. At the time, I used to collect sneakers and sell sneakers. And I was on this web forum called Nike Talk. And it just so happened that a guy on the forum who was in Maryland was a wholesaler. His name's Vernon Vaughn. And him and I were exchanging some emails. And I remember I went to his website, and he had a picture of a check for $34,000. And I thought to myself, holy shit, like, how did this guy make 34 grand, right? So I got into wholesaling after, seeing that. It took me 2 years to do my first deal, which was a struggle for me. I had mindset issues and different things going on at the time, but ended up doing my first deal. Things started rolling pretty decent. And then I pivoted into fix and flip. I started doing a large amount of fix and flips, like 30 to 40 a year. Got into new construction. Eventually, I got into apartment investing and some different things. In 2017, I almost lost my shirt. And I like telling that story because I was growing so fast. My development, my fix and flip business was growing very, very rapidly. And then I ran into a cash flow issue. I was asset rich, cash poor because I was taking all my money and buying more real estate, right? And, got into the process of that. And, we're sitting around the office and we're trying to figure out, like, how do we fix these cash flow issues? What do we do to right the ship? And, I said, well, let's go back to the roots, man. Let's go back to how we started this thing in the first place. So I got back into wholesaling. We started killing it. And I think the transition back into wholesaling was very smooth for us because I had always done my own marketing to find my own deal flow. I just wasn't wholesaling anymore to other people. And so we had never stopped creating our own deal flow. So it was easy to kind of pick back up and pivot into wholesaling. So we started doing a lot of wholesale deals, started doing it really, really well. And, people started to recognize that. And in when was this, man? I'd say 2019, bumped into Max Maxwell. I'm sure a lot of people know who that is. Bumped into him at a conference, an event he was speaking at. Me and him exchanged information, started kind of, speaking and hanging out. And he kept suggesting that I start doing some stuff online and talking about real estate and share my experience. And I'm like, dude, nah, like, I'm all right. Like, I'd rather just do real estate. I don't know about this whole online thing. And he kind of kept pushing and prodding. More people started saying the same thing. And, I had a conversation with a friend of mine that I had mentored in Richmond. And he was doing very, very well, still is doing very well. And he said something to me that was very pivotal. He said, look, man, you've changed my life. You've taught me how to do real estate. You've sincerely helped me out. Only thing I got to ask, man, is why are you not doing this for more people? And I didn't have an actual legitimate answer for that. Selfishly, it would be selfish of me rather to not try to share information with people, or try to help people out, try to share from, my wins, my losses. I haven't, business hasn't always been easy, right? I've made mistakes in business. Things haven't gone right sometimes in business, and that's part of the journey. For me, what I think is powerful about what I do or the content that I put out is being intentional about letting people know, like, hey, like, you're going to hit rough spots, like things are going to get more difficult. And that's part of business. That's part of life. You work through it, you overcome it, and you continue to grow and prosper. So that's kind of the message that I'm sharing. Right now, I run Charged Up University as well. Shout out to the U family. And in that group, we have over 400 students. We had over 700 students come through the program last year in 2020. And what I do in that program is I teach people how to get started in wholesaling in a very affordable way.
Wow. That's a cool story. I know there's a lot of layers to it. Again, we don't have 4 hours to go over everything. I wish we did. But you're being very humble in it. You've dealt with some crazy adversity, and I think it's just very admirable of it. And honestly, I've talked to a lot of guys in Richmond, and they always tell me, like, Zach, you got a couple thousand people on your YouTube channel. Don't talk about Richmond. And it just, I know people are going to kill me for it, but or have Chris on here. He's doing 7 figures. He's in Richmond, Virginia. So I guess the secret's out.
Hey, look, Richmond's yeah. So look, here's the deal, right? Richmond's a phenomenal market. I think. So here's my 2 markets. I don't mind sharing. So Richmond's one of my market. 804 and 757 area codes are my markets. So Hampton Roads area, Norfolk, Portsmouth. But specifically, why is Richmond a good market? Because we've got such low supply of houses, and it makes it a phenomenally great market for people who are looking to do fix and flip, as well as people who are looking to provide rental opportunities. There's not a ton of single family rentals available in the Richmond market as well. And I think people do very, very well in both of those verticals in Richmond. And quite frankly, man, the returns on wholesale deals in the city are insane, absolutely insane. And the reason being is it's not like some of these like Midwest markets where you're going to deal with the smaller margin. You're going to be cracking 5,000-10,000 a deal, something like that. In Richmond, when you get the right deals, you can crack some pretty heavy wholesale deals. We've done, $100,000 wholesale deals, $75,000 wholesale deals. And so, it's a phenomenally great market, man. I like it. I'm not one of those guys, Zach, that and I see this and I find it funny sometimes where, people get to a certain level and it's like, who can be in the most markets and who can have the biggest office and who can this and who can that. And people always ask me like, well, why are you only still doing stuff in Virginia? And it's like, dude, the market's sweet. Like we can do enough deals. It gives me the time to be able to do the online stuff. It gives me time to do some of my fix and flip stuff. And so, you don't always have to chase down the next biggest market or the next coolest market. Sometimes it's about identifying a strong market that you believe in and that you want to get behind and be a contributor to the growth that takes place in that area.
That's something I definitely agree with you. The growth in that area, you're able to do a lot of crazy stuff. You're online, not all the time, but a good amount. And it's really important for people to understand. They see a 7-figure wholesaler and they think you're working 90 hours a week. You got like 50 employees in this huge office and like it's stress. It's like the Wolf of Wall Street. Can you explain what your business looks like and what Absolutely. A real 7-figure wholesaler looks like?
I like these questions, man. So yeah, ironic. I'm in LA right now, man, working from LA, and out here for a few more days. So my business is, we've got 6 people on the team, right? We've got 3 American callers. All right. We've got a lead manager, and then we've got a VA, and then we've got myself. And so I pride myself on keeping a really lean operation. And the reason being is before I didn't have one, I had a bunch of different people and all these different roles. And what I started to realize was, I asked myself something really specific one day. I said, why are we trying to do business this way? Mm-hmm. And the honest answer to that is, well, that's what everybody was doing that was putting out content. And so you make the blanket assumption that, hey, that's what my business should look like. I should have 20 salespeople. I should have 5 lead managers and a transaction coordinator and all these different things. And what I realized was like, wait, man, that's cutting into my margin a little too much. and I could really run a leaner business and really be way more profitable, overall in the business that I'm doing. And so, again, we've got 3 callers. I do have American callers. We used to have virtual assistants making our calls. I pivoted off of that a couple of years ago. And that's been way more successful for me, but we had a lot of success with virtual assistants as well. It's all relative to what you want your business to look like.
Okay. And obviously you teach that all in your university that you have. So I don't want to give too much of the secret sauce away for you, but for your business, I mean, for you, how many hours do you think you work in the wholesaling operational side per week?
So just in my wholesale business, I'd say 2 to 3 hours a day. Definitely like 2 to 3 hours a day.
7 days a week?
Yeah, I do work 7 days a week. I'm trying to get better about that, man. It's one of those things. But one of the things that I'm working on, actually, honestly, while I'm out here in LA, I came out here, my brother lives out here, and I wanted to take some time to come see him. He just had surgery on his knee. So I wanted to help him out with that. And I wanted to take some personal time to kind of just reorganize, reflect, look at how we're doing certain processes and how those things could be tightened up. And one of the things that I realized was I really don't need to work 7 days a week. And so, when I reflected back on, I'm like, why am I working so much? And not just in the wholesale business, in my investment business, as far as my fix and flips and development stuff, my online business, like, hey, why am I doing so much work? Right. And what I realized was I don't have to identify it by the days of the week. I need to isolate it down to what work needs to be completed. And so, one thing that I teach my students, one thing that I practice myself, and I've kind of gotten away from it in the last, 6 to 12 months with all this craziness that's kind of happened online, is time blocking. I believe in time blocking. I think time blocking is important. And so one of the things that I'm working on while I'm out here is revisiting, how I time block my days every single day. And then being intentional about setting it up to be a Monday to Friday business, kind of a more traditional type of business, and freeing up my weekends in the future. Because, when I had those cash flow issues and stuff like that back in 2017, man, to get out of that, right? Like to work out of that space and get things back on track. The honest truth is you got to work your ass off. So I put in a lot of hours, I put in a lot of time, I put in a lot of effort, and you just get in that grind mode to fix things. And so what tends to happen, or at least what happened for me, is I never reorganized or recalibrated the machine once things got back on track. And I just kept working at that same pace with that same energy. And then I finally had to realize, like, hey man, like you don't have to work that hard, anymore. Like we've gotten it figured out. Right. And so just making that adjustment. But yeah, man, I work a couple hours a day in the wholesale business. It gives me the ability to come in, look at some reporting, see what's going on, see what leads we have, where I need to kind of give an opinion on what offers need to be made. One of the key people that I shifted around, I want to point this out. So when I say 3 callers, one of those callers, I shifted him into, he still makes calls, but his primary responsibility now is I'm turning him into me. And so what I mean by that is in my business before, we would speak to a seller, and if they were interested, that seller would then be handed off to me to close them. All right. On that second call, I would call them back to close them, or they'd hand the call off to me, whatever the case might be. But when I started doing all this online stuff, it became more difficult to make time to do those handoff calls and all those different, to even be available to take them. And so what I started doing here in the last, I'd say probably 60 days, is I took one of my callers and I'm morphing him essentially into me. And he knows this if he sees this, right? I'm morphing him into me in effort to get him to close these deals over the phone to help me free up more time to work on other things.
Okay. And right now, so you're closing the deals currently?
No, so we've already shifted. So right now we've shifted over to him actually closing them. And so it's kind of weird how it works now. So I step in if it's like a seller that's like, they need some of that, they need some of that. They need some bars to get hit with, right? I step in on something like that. But for the most part, he's handling closing those deals. And then I'm consulting with him directly to give him feedback on the conversation or what he's dealing with when he's having that conversation with the seller. And the goal is within the next 6 months for him to be in a place where he can kind of run on his own independently and help get these leads closed without me having to be kind of over his shoulder or anything like that.
Definitely. I 100% agree with that. I mean, just having that delegation just opens up so much time. But I'm just thinking at the audience. I mean, I remember before I got everything delegated and I really was running the business myself, it's really stressful. So hearing someone like you say you're working, maybe 20 hours, 21 hours or less a week. And right now someone's like working 60 hours a week. They're doing all the marketing. They're doing everything themselves. How does someone get to that point from doing literally everything to actually starting delegating their employees or getting employees so you could start freeing up some more time? How did you do that?
Yeah, so I can actually speak to this kind of well because I did it the wrong way originally. Here's the common mistake, and this is the exact mistake that I made. I'm sure a lot of people watching this are making as well. So when I first started out, things started to go well for me. I didn't develop systems and processes. Well, I developed systems rather, but I didn't have processes. And what I mean by that is I didn't have standard operating procedures. I didn't have any SOPs as to, how, all right, when we encounter this, how is that supposed to work? Or what are we supposed to do in this situation? Hey, lead manager, how are you supposed to manage Podio? We didn't have those things. And so as a result, that's what created the amount of hours, because, what happens is you create a funnel where everything then has to run through you. And so unfortunately, you put yourself in a position because you have no SOPs where you then have to be involved in every single conversation and decision that happens inside your business. So I hired some consultants back in 2017 that came in and were really helpful to my business. And one of the first things they said was, hey, what are your standard operating procedures for XYZ? And I'm like, yeah, I don't have any. And they're like, well, you definitely should have that, right? And so we had to become intentional about creating SOPs. And so what that's done is if I want to I'm getting ready to bring some more people on my team right now for calling, for example. And so when that person gets onboarded, now there's a process in place that will onboard them and let them know what onboarding looks like, what the training looks like, what those steps are. So my advice would be, it would have been so much easier for me to build that when I started, but I didn't because I didn't know any better. But if you're starting your wholesale business, or if you're in the cusp of your wholesale business, things are starting to kind of fall in place for you. You really should be creating standard operating procedures for your business and how different things function and work in your business. Because as you start to remove yourself, you're now reliant to those standard operating procedures and managing and updating those versus having to be directly involved in every single piece of the business.
Definitely. I mean, that's great advice. I mean, the systems operation is amazing. My question for you is that was a question maybe for someone, they're starting to get a little bit of traction, but they want to get it up. But what's your advice to somebody that really started from scratch and they might have saw an Instagram clip from you. They might see something really fancy or a cool check from you, get into it, and they want to become a millionaire. They want the Gucci bag. They want something nice, and they want to actually live nice things and have it. What would your advice from someone absolutely with no money to become a millionaire with wholesaling?
Yeah, man. You got some good questions, man. I like it, man. This is good. So here's my advice on that. And this is meant to not be offensive to anybody. It's just a fact. You have to stop living life in fear. And it's weird to me, right? Like I think about this a lot. Like why is everybody in fear of so many different things? And what I mean when I say that specifically is, fear of getting on the phone, analysis paralysis, like fear of getting started, fear of taking action. And it's like, why are you scared? And what I mean when I say that is, and I ask my students this a lot, like this is what I try to figure out. If you're at your rock bottom, like if you have nothing, if you don't have money right now, if you want these nice things, if you want to be able to take care of your family, if you want to be able to take care of your children, if you want to drive the car that you want, buy the piece of art that you want. Me and my brother were talking earlier today about a piece of art we looked at is like $12,000. Now I'm not buying it, right? But if that's something you're interested in, you want to be able to do that, right? And for me, like the thought is really simple. It's this, right? Is your fear greater than the want or need for the things that you need or want?
Ooh.
And so like fear is natural. That's a human instinct, right? We can't eliminate fear because that's a human trigger, right? Like mentally, however you're wired, the things that scare you and you have fear of, those things aren't going to go away. You can work on them. You can move past them. And so for me, mentally, it's just like, when I started doing content, like I'm not like somebody who likes being on camera all the time and doing all these different things. I wouldn't say it was a fear, but still it's like, hey, if you want to help people, if you want to get people to the place that you say that you want, you can't be fearful or scared to do an IG live and talking to a cell phone. Like you got to overcome that. And so if you want the things that you say that you want in this business, if you want to have the ideal life that you say that you do, the house, the car, whatever those things are, just financial security, let's just call it that. The fear of picking up a telephone and talking to somebody that you don't know, you've never met, likely will never meet if you don't do a deal with them, cannot be greater than what you say that you want out of your life.
Wow. I'm telling you that's huge. I mean, guys, you need to write that down. So what was that quote? So if your fear shouldn't be greater than what you want. Yeah.
So your fear can't be greater than what you want or what you need.
Oh man.
Like, and this is the thing people have to understand, like being scared to get on the phone is perfectly fine. Like, having call reluctance and, not wanting to cold call or, your hand shaking while you're on the phone talking to a seller, like that's cool. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And like the analogy I give my students is this, like, Zach, if I take you, all right, let's like one of those horror movies, right? Like if I take you and drop you in the middle of the woods, all right, all you've got is a flashlight. This flashlight is your cell phone, all right? Because that's how you got to talk to sellers. If I drop you in the middle of the woods and you're in fear of your life, are you literally telling me that you're just going to sit there and sit in the middle of the woods and rot away? Like just be happy with where you're at and just say, man, I'm scared to go in any direction because I don't know where I'm at. I don't know exactly where to go. So I'm just going to sit here in the middle of the woods in the dark and wither away because I'm scared. I'm not going to say that. I think almost everybody's not going to say that. I think most people are going to try to fight and figure their way out of the woods. And so you have to treat the business and the phone the exact same way. Like if you're saying that you're not somebody that's going to sit in the middle of the woods and just rot away, which I don't think any of us would, then why would you sit and rot away at your 9-to-5 that you hate and you're not happy with? Why would you, sit and rot away with a salary that you're not okay with? Like, why would you sit and rot away because you dropped out of college or failed out of college like I did? And you're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. So I guess I'm just going to, be upset because minimum wage isn't $15 an hour. It's like, nah, it's like, look, like I'm going to fight, like fight or flight, right? Like I'm going to run and get my way out of these woods. I don't care if I make it out of the woods and I'm scratched up, beat up, crawling my way out. I made it out. And so you got to get on the phones at the end of the day. You got to talk to sellers. I think, Zach, one thing people don't understand that's really important is that everything you do comes back to the phone. It doesn't, like everybody tries to get relying on text messaging or, sending RVMs or doing this, doing that. Oh, I'm just going to do PPC or you have to get on the phone at some point. So if we all know that, why are we running from the phone? Even if it's a fear, we have to work on developing that skill. So that's my thought, on that. Some people might not agree, but that's just my thought and kind of how I look at it.
I agree and look at it the same exact way. My question though, if someone's looking at you, there's plenty of videos of you going live on like IG with the seller on the phone. And I've done it before. It takes a lot more confidence to doing it. But
yeah.
When you were starting out, were you fearful at all talking to sellers on the phone?
I think I was and I wasn't. I think for me, so one of my first jobs, I worked in bill collecting. And I used to work in customer service at T-Mobile for a really long time. Those are phone jobs, like call center jobs. Like there's nothing tougher than being a bill collector. You're calling people that don't want to answer the phone, don't want to make a payment to you. Like it's not easy, right? And so I think I was fearful of that. And then shout out to all my U family. I see you guys in here. And as a result, Zach, I don't know if you know, by the way, man, we roll pretty heavy, man. My team is heavy.
That's why you're heavily requested here, man. I'm sorry.
We're all over, man. We're all over. A shout out to the U family, man. But so what happened, I think for me personally, is I was able to work through that fear getting a check from somebody else. And because, like I'm in a call center when I was a bill collector, like you had stats that you had to hit. Like if you didn't hit your stats, like they fired you. Like if you didn't collect X amount of dollars, or like they got rid of you, right? And so, for me, and this probably sounds crazy to some people. When I was working that bill collecting job, I was working to like be able to move out on my own and some other stuff like that, right? And so what I had to do was I'm like, shit, like I'll be damned if I'm scared to get on the phone versus get my own apartment. Like I'm tired of living with my parents, right? Like I really want my own place. So if I got to figure out how to push through and get on the phones, like I'm just going to figure out how to do it. And so thankfully for me, not everybody has the benefit of working in a call center or something like that. So I was able to work those things out, those fears, while somebody else was paying me versus, say I was a contractor and then found out about wholesaling and then was trying to do it and had never talked on the phone, never had an online or never had a phone business. That could be definitely more difficult to manage and get through for sure.
Definitely. I mean, that call experience is great. But my next question for you here is, I mean, you got the charged up you family everywhere. So they're coming. I don't want to be distracted, but they're everywhere here. But
no doubt.
I'm going to talk about them for a second here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You had, 700 students. You have a lot of them. And you obviously have really a lot of great success stories. But I have a feeling if I took all 700 students out for a case study and I compared maybe your top 5 guys on there that are absolutely destroying it, and maybe the guys that they said your thing sucks or it doesn't work, and
right.
What is the key difference between the ones that truly absolutely succeed and live their dream life versus the ones that say, Chris, your course sucks, it's terrible, wholesale scam? What's the difference between the two?
They just go, right? Like, the students I have that are excelling the most, getting the most things done, they literally do exactly what I tell them to do, right? Like legitimately, I tell my students exactly what to say on the phone, exactly how to say it on the phone, when to say it on the phone, how to manage your deals, how to do everything, right? They literally do exactly what I tell them to do. Now, I've also got other students that are having success. They don't do everything that I tell them to do, but they do most of it, right? But I think the gap in student success between somebody who hasn't been able to get a deal done and somebody that's killing it, making a bunch of money, multiple deals a month, because we got a bunch of students that are on each end of the spectrum. That's just the reality of it, right? Is that the guys higher up on the totem pole, so to speak, they're just going for it every day. They're pushing through the fear on a daily basis. They're doing the exact same things that I tell them to say. See, I've got some students, and they know this because I say this to them. So Zach, I'm not catching them off guard saying this, but because we have real conversations in the U, right? And one of those conversations is, listen, if you're paying me to be a student, all right, and you've seen what I've been able to accomplish, you see what other students have been able to accomplish, don't join the program and then compare it against what other information you have or what free information you saw on YouTube or Facebook or this, that, and the third. And don't get me wrong, I do free content as well, but here's how I can best describe what I do. All right. And it's simple to me. I'm in LA right now. I live in Virginia. All right. If I want to go home this weekend back to Virginia, I can get there with a map. Like I can go old school and take a map. And I haven't read a map in a really long time, but I'm sure I'm smart enough I could figure it out at some point. Now I'm going to take some wrong turns. I might end up off track and get stuck at a gas station and asking for directions or whatever the case might be. That's free content. That's YouTube. That's Facebook. That's all those different things, right? You can figure it out. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take you to actually figure it out or not. My program, Charged Up University, it's a GPS system. It's like Google Maps. All right. It tells you exactly when to take a left. It takes you exactly when to take a right. It tells you exactly what the speed limit is. It tells you all these different things. Shout out to Maurice, he knows, right? It tells you exactly what you need to do to get to where you want to go. So it's going to tell you how to get from LA and exactly how to get to Virginia without making a wrong turn. And I think that's the gap that a lot of people have, is instead of locking in and just listening to the GPS and exactly where it tells you to go and do exactly what it says, they're driving down the street and they say, well, I know the GPS says to go straight, but I mean, I think if I remember right, like I think I could take a left turn here and it's going to be 5 minutes faster. And then boom, you take a left turn. Now you're lost. And now you got to go back to the GPS to get the GPS to redirect you back to the route. That's the best way that I could probably explain it for sure.
Definitely. I mean, what Maurice called that like 4 minutes before you even said that. But
that's funny. Yeah, he's one of my students, man. Shout out to my guy Maurice, man. So he knows, man. Yeah, the U is definitely a GPS system for sure.
All right. And so I got 2 last questions here, and then we're gonna let the audience get in, ask some quick questions real quick.
Yeah.
But my one question here is, I mean, you're an absolute killer on the phones. There's no way of lying. What is one thing someone can take away that maybe they're struggling talking to sellers on the phone? What is the one quick gem, tip, nugget, whatever you want to call it, for someone that maybe they're nervous on the phone or they have a difficulty closing on the phone? What could you give to them?
Yeah, so I would say follow a script. I think a lot of what I hear from new students. So the benefit of having so many students is you get to hear a lot of different conversations and a lot of perspectives. And I think most people have the perspective like, hey, I don't need a script, or I don't want to use a script because I don't want to sound like a robot or da 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 da. The script is one of the most critical pieces of the process. All right. And so, my advice would be to find a good quality script that hits all the spots and to rely on that and how you communicate to your sellers. And you're not interviewing the seller when you speak with them. So you're not calling the seller and doing a job interview. You're calling the seller and having a conversation, and your script is the framework that you're using to make sure that you're hitting all the spots in the conversation. The goal of a good cold calling script is to gather information. Like that's the goal, right? Like I'm talking to Zach on the phone. This is my first time reaching out to him. My goal right now is to gather as much information from Zach as possible about his situation, about his property, about the repairs that it might need, why he wants to sell it, when he wants to sell it. And then it gives me everything I need to have ammunition to negotiate, to renegotiate when needed, to build rapport, all these different things. So my advice would be for you guys to really find a good script, lock in on that script, and make sure you're actually using it when you're making calls.
Wow. Great gem there. So we got some great comments. What's up? What's up? Sweet, sweet, sweet. Todd Miller, another Richmond guy out there.
Shout out to Todd, man. Todd's a good dude. He's another wholesaler in my market, man. He's a beast, man. Shout out to Todd Miller, man.
All right. So Luis asked a pretty good question here. What tips would you give to your younger self when beginning in real estate wholesaling?
Man, that's actually, y'all got good questions, man. I love this. So my advice to my younger self would be to move faster. And so what I mean by that, and this hopefully will be helpful for people to understand, when I first started out, and for a few years, I didn't move with enough speed. And so, speed of implementation is key. And this is something I'm personally have been working on for years. Because here's what happens. You can find out about wholesaling. You can find out about a cold call script. You can join my program. You can watch every single one of Zach's videos. You can do anything. But if you can't implement with any sort of speed, you're not going to have much success. Or you'll have success, but you won't have the success that you could have. And the key to implementing with speed is that, things happen so fast. And especially with technology involved in wholesaling at this point. So for example, like text messaging, when you hear somebody say, hey, we're sending text, you need to change your script. The carriers are clamping down, different things are happening. You shouldn't still be sitting around trying to send out your old scripts. Like you got to implement with speed. You've got to be intentional about, making sure that you implement that adjustment in your business right away. A lot of people struggle with this, man. A lot of people, they drag their feet on stuff. I think I'm going to join Charged Up. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to wait for this paycheck. And it's like, if you want to do anything, great. If you want to be great, if you want to have the ideal life that you say that you want, you got to move with speed. Moving without speed, man, you lose a lot of time. It's already getting ready to be March soon. It feels like February started yesterday.
Oh my God.
Like we're hitting mid-month. You know what I mean? Like we're getting ready to hit mid-month. And so we think time is slow. but time is actually rapidly fast. And so because time is so fast, we as individuals have to move with speed to get to the place that we want to go.
Definitely. And then we got Kristen. Oh, you got the GOAT.
Shout out to that, man. I appreciate that, Kristen.
Thaddeus got some great comments. What's up? We got a lot going on here, so I'm trying to find some good questions here.
Sure.
Coaching the game. Oh my God.
Shout out the stars, man. Shout out the stars.
All right. Olivia has pretty going on here. What's the best way to market?
Yeah. So here's how my business works. Here's what I teach my students. We do cold calling, we do text messaging, and we do RVMs. I call it the three-headed monster. It's the best way, in my opinion, to reach sellers. It's also the most cost-effective. So, one things that I teach my students is how to get started for, $500 to $0, and the exact processes and methods that you can go through to be able to do that. And then, RVMs, cold calling, and SMS are very critical in that because the cost to do those right now is so cheap. Just to put that in perspective real quick. So I sent out, I want to say we sent out 28,000 text messages in January. It cost me under $200 to do that.
Wow. What service are you using?
I don't know if I can say.
All right, we'll keep it.
Here's what I'll do. I'm gonna set something up. All right. You and I will connect so that you can give your listeners some information on it and make sure they have it. Because I don't want my students to beat me up. I see some in the comments right now saying not the launch codes. We've got some launch codes in the U that are working very, very well for myself and students. But I will connect with you because I want to make sure that you have that information. Your listeners have that information as well. So let's connect offline. I'll explain what I'm doing to you, how it works, because it can be a little intricate. And then maybe we do a follow-up, or maybe you get it out to your listeners, man, and we can educate them on it and get them rolling on it.
Definitely. And by the way, guys, I'm not getting paid affiliates from his thing. Like,
yeah.
Man, he's providing value. I love it, man. So, last question here. Technically, this is another question. Let me try to find him. Slim the Tech Guy Gamer asked a very similar question, and I'm going to do this. So every single podcast I do, I ask the same question. All right. Time for this one. So I started out at 17 with $300 in my bank account. Slim the Gamer has a similar question with $500, but with $300 to $500, if you were 17 years old again, you're out of high school. I throw you out in the woods here or there in Richmond.
Yeah.
You got $300 to $500 in your bank account. What would you do exactly step by step to become the next Chris Jefferson?
Yeah, man. So the question is, I don't make sure I got this right. So you're taking me back, 17. Hopefully I'm not as ridiculous if I got to do 17 again. Because I was a pretty kid that was kind of all over the place. So what would I do if I had $300 to $500? I love this question. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do with that money. All right. So the first thing that I would do is I would go to, shameless plug, but it's actually what I would do. I would go to chargeduplist.com. It'd be my first stop. All right. See, a lot of people are like, man, I'm going to drop for dollars. Man, I'm going to do this. Man, I'm going to do that. You can buy data so cheap right now. All right. I would go buy a list. Okay. So do I have 300 or do I have 500? Because that changes a little bit about what I would do.
Let's just say 500.
All right. So here's what I would do.
You got some money.
And Zach, minimum wage went up. Zach, I need you to help me out. So I've got I buy a list on Charged Up list of 1,000 records. It's 12 cents a record, $120. All right. So I go by that. Now I've got to skip trace that. All right. So I would go to REI skip. I'd skip trace that 15 cents a record. All right. So that's $150. So I've spent $270. All right. But I've got 1,000 records, targeted stacked leads. So Charged Up list, guys, is stacked leads. These are pre-stacked. I'll give you a really good list right now. So if you go to my page, chargeduplist.com, click on Chris's favorites. Down at the bottom, it shows you my 3 favorite lists that are working in my business for myself right this very second, as well as a bunch of my students. All right. So I would buy one of those lists. I would buy 1,000 records that cost me $120. I would skip trace those records. It would cost me $150. Now I'm $270 in. All right. I would then go get $1 All right. For $99, I go to Call Tools. You can use the code charged up. It'll waive your sign up fee. It's only $99 a month. All right. So now we're at what, 370, right? So if we're at 370, I'm gonna keep it very simple. I would go put more records on top of that. All right. I would go put more records on top of that. And, or if you're one of my students watching this, I want to be clear. I would be using the launch codes. I'd be using our secret weapon with the remaining balance of that $370 to $500. I would be buying more records and using our secret weapon to contact sellers. And I know that I'm not saying I would get a deal out of those 1,000 records, because 1,000 records is a lot, but it's not. But I would consistently spend that on a monthly basis, because I would be okay with not getting the deal in that first month. Now, I would hope to get a deal in the first month, but guys, you got to understand that most deals come from the 8th to 12th touch. And so in knowing that, I can't have the assumption I'm just going to do a deal in 30 days. Zach would tell you, I'm sure, it's not very common that you just get on the phone and somebody says, yeah, no, I'll sell my property for $50,000. I'll sign a contract right now. It'd be really nice if that happened a lot, but it's just not the reality, right? So I would set up some follow-up systems and be intentional about making sure I followed up. But that's exactly how I would start, man. I would put $500 on that, try to make it shake, and then if it didn't for whatever reason, I would keep working and put another $500 on it as frequently as possible.
Boom, easy as that. Guys, I really appreciate you guys watching this. Again, Chris is just dropping gems here. So if you got any value out of it, comment below the one takeaway you got out of this podcast and what's the best you can. But again, Chris has got all those leads, the SMS stuff. If you're not following him on Instagram, you honestly really should. He's got those little, what do you call them? Those little Instagram videos you do.
Yeah, we put up clips once or twice a day.
They're great.
Where we just drop a little bit of gems that people can pick up on, apply to what they're doing in their business. The clips, guys, they're just my thoughts, my opinions. I'm not ever going to say that I'm the end all be all authority on wholesaling or how it works. But here's what I do know. You got to find somebody that resonates with you, somebody this process and beliefs make sense to you, and lock in on what that person tells you to do, whether it's me or anybody. You want to lock in on what they're telling you to do, and you want to follow that process, because if that person's proven, I tell people all the time, and I say it jokingly, but I mean it. I've been in business 11 years. You can't fake being in business 11 years. It's not really possible. Right. And so if you know that people have had success, if you've seen them make different things happen, you don't reinvent the wheel. That's the greatest secret that people, I think, don't tell folks, is you don't reinvent the wheel. Like when you get to the higher up places in the business, I call it copying and pasting. Like I talked with a guy 2 weeks ago when I was in San Antonio at a mastermind, Nick Perry, and he's telling me about how he's doing all this crazy stuff with PPC and all these different things. And I'm like, bro, like I kind of need you to break this down. Like, I don't want to have to go figure it out myself and do a bunch of trial and error. I'd rather copy and paste, what's working for you, And so I think a lot of people, everybody wants to put their spin on it. Well, I know Zach is telling me to do this, but I think, what I really should do is do it this way. And it's like, no, like, look, if it's worked for Zach and Zach is showing you that it works, why would you try to deviate from that advice? I want to do what works. Like when we go to lose weight or build weight, well, whatever the case might be, like we try to follow a process. We're not coming in and saying, Zach, I know you say don't eat cupcakes, man, but like, I mean, it doesn't really throw me off to have one a day. And it's like, nah, bro, like it kind of does, So that would be my answer to that and my advice for sure.
Boom. I really appreciate it. Again, if I was back here 4 years ago, there's nobody sharing clips, the free content, stuff like you're doing. So give you a follow, check you out. I really appreciate it. Before we hop off here, is there any parting thoughts you have for the guests?
Yeah, I do, man. Keep going. Wholesaling is a business that can knock you down. I call it the real estate roller coaster. It's tough, man. At the end of the day, we all come into this thing like red hot. We find out about wholesaling and we're pumped up. We're excited. We're like, hey, like, yeah, like I'm going to do this. I'm going to get rich, da, 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 da. Then you get in it You're using a map instead of using a GPS. Things feel a little confusing. You feel like you can't make it work. You haven't done your first deal yet. And you kind of start to kind of zone out of it. You start to kind of listen to people telling you, hey, it's not going to work or not, So my advice, man, sincerely, guys, is please keep going. I mean, wholesaling can open the door for you for every single thing that you want. If you follow me or followed me for some time and you've seen me build houses or, redevelop apartment complexes and do these different things, it was all started and built off of wholesaling. And that's why I'm glad that I ran into what I ran into in 2017, because it wouldn't have brought me back to wholesaling. I was doing all these big projects and all these different things. Wholesaling was a distant memory, honestly, at that point in time. But certain things had to happen in my life to bring me back to what made the most sense and what really I was really good at. And so my advice, man, is just keep going. Business is going to be difficult. Things are going to hit you. People are going to talk shit about you. People are going to say, oh, Chris this or Chris that. Like, that's just life. Those things don't bother me. I don't lose any sleep over it at all. You got to find the willpower to keep going. Whatever you're dealing with in your personal life right now, having issues with your children, significant other, your workplace, it doesn't matter, man. I know it's easier said than done. Trust me, I get it. I've been through it. You got to keep pushing forward. You got to keep chasing your dreams and going after it. And achieve that life that you deserve and that you want at the end of the day, man. That's what we're here for. We got one good shot, like legit, like we've got one good shot at this. It could be taken from us in a blink of an eye, knock on wood, God willing, man. We all want to see 80, 90 years, or more. Right. And so, my mindset is always, when I find myself in vulnerable moments to this day, when I feel weak about the things that I'm trying to work on or focus on, the thought process is the same. It's like, yo, like CJ, man, 10 toes down, let's keep going. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to push through some pain, frustration, stress, but it is what it is, man. I mean, I could go back to making $15 an hour working at T-Mobile and not have any of those problems, any of those stress factors or whatever the case might be. But what good would that do?
Definitely. I really appreciate it, Chris, for coming on. You guys are just your team's amazing. They're giving great value. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week for the next wholesaling podcast. Have a good one.